Hello and welcome back to the Sports Booth YouTube channel. Today, a special video looking at the Rugby World Cup. We're going to be looking at every single team, yes, all 20 teams at the Rugby World Cup and saying who is the most important player for that team. This importance could come from a range of things via leadership, via their ability, via what they mean to the team and how they can carry themselves or carry that team to a successful tournament. We'll run for each team, so all the major teams, you know, your Ireland, France, South Africa, New Zealand, and even the minnows in Portugal, Uruguay, and so on. But starting off first, what we're going to do is run through the pools and each team in each pool. So Pool A, start off with France, highest ranked team in that pool. Second ranked in the world, home World Cup. Who is the most important player in this team? It is obviously none other than Antoine Dupont. The French scrum half probably has the most pressure going into this tournament on a single player. He leads the French team in everything they do. When he's playing well, which is quite often, I don't think you see many bad games out of him. The French are doing really well and doing really good things. So going into a home World Cup, and I guess the tough side of the draw, as we've mentioned before, he is the one that's going to mastermind either a French victory or a French loss. Saying that, he's got a really good team around him, I think, this year for France to make a good challenge at the World Cup. A strong four pack. I was tempted to go Romain Intermac, but I just think if France are going to win, it's going to come down to Dupont. Second up, New Zealand, third team in the world, the All Blacks. I've done a bit of a cheeky one for this purely because I don't actually know who's going to be playing in the number 10 jersey. I think that's the most important position for the All Blacks going into this World Cup. So I've put two players with Richie Mo'unga and Damian McKenzie. Whatever player ends up taking the 10 reins and leading the team out there, I highly believe they're going to be the most important to the success of the All Blacks. Now, saying that, the team around them can obviously make their job a little bit easier. As we saw from, I think, the win over South Africa, I don't think Richie Mo'unga obviously didn't have a bad game, but he didn't have the most fantastic game in the world, but he had players like Aaron Smith put their hand up, Shannon Frizzell, Will Jordan. When either of these guys can manage a game and players around them put themselves in, you know, special abilities, make breaks, that's when these two break the game best open. When the game's flowing really well, when they've got the team around them making something happen, they'll make something out of nowhere. When the team's on the back foot and struggling to make breaks like we saw against England in the semi-final in 2019, they are going to struggle. So whatever happens with these two leading the team, one of them is more than likely either going to take the team to glory or lead this team to another unfortunate exit at the Rugby World Cup. Third in this pool, the third team we're looking at in Pool A is Italy, ranked 14th in the world at the moment. I've gone this player and it's hard, especially with importance. You know, you look at the positions and normally you're going to be around that 9-10 mark, maybe a big forward who could lead the team in the loosies. I've gone with Ange Capuzzo, the fullback for Italy. Now, his game-breaking ability is what Italy have missed for a long time, I think. Italy are always competitive up front. They will give it their best crack. They're passionate. But to break a game open and to really take a game and split it open and score wonder tries is what Capuzzo does best. And if he's able to do that on the back of, you know, really strong performances up front, this team can do something in this tournament. We've seen against France in the Six Nations in France as well. This team stood up and just about took a victory. We've also seen them beat Wales where Capuzzo scored a fantastic try there. So I just sit there and I go, if this team is going to do something, they need to play as passionate as a team and everything like that. But him to break the game open is going to be essential. The fourth team in Pool A is Uruguay, and I've gone for their little scrum half, Santiago Arata. Arata is the first choice number 9 out of Castres in the French top 1 and actually started the final in 2022 when they played Montpellier in that final. I think if Uruguay are going to upset someone like they did at Fiji at the last World Cup, he's going to be the leader of that, 26 years old, really coming into his prime. Is good for a snipe and controlling that forward pack. They're very similar to Italy. They're going to be passionate. They're going to be physical. You know, I say Italy, but even Argentina is a similar team. You'd probably put them there. If you let this team hang around and Arata can break a couple of plays open, they could upset someone. The last team in Pool A is Namibia. And there's no one more important to them than the inside centre, Johan Diesel. Debuted all the way back in 2013. Now their captain is a hard-running, tough ball carrier. Famously scored a try against the All Blacks in 2015 when they played. So, might be looking to do the same there again. But if they're going to pick up a victory in this pool, their best target is obviously Uruguay or Italy. And to do that, he's going to have to set the platform, especially in that back line. And if he can do that, we see how big and beastly the South African forwards are. Namibia are going to play a similar style coming out of the African continent. So if he can set that platform for them, they do have a good opportunity to upset the likes of Uruguay or Italy. It's going to take a big effort from Diesel, though. Okay, moving on to Pool B. South Africa first, ranked 4th in the world. I think this is an easy choice. There's lots of names everyone can say. You could say Faf de Klerk, Eben Etzebeth. I understand all of those. But after the loss to New Zealand, there's only one man, in my opinion, that we need to be watching for, and that's Andre Pollard. He quite clearly is the best 10 in South Africa at the moment, obviously out with injury currently, will return before the World Cup and is needed. I think better game driver than any other 10 they've got there. Obviously, we're going to see a bit more of Lebok probably leading up to this World Cup, but I think if he can come back, he's going to decide the fate of this team, I feel, with his kicking, with just his game management. If South Africa are going to win another World Cup, it'll be behind Pollard. Speaking of a game manager and key leader, Ireland's obviously Johnny Sexton for me. Again, a similar one. You could go Caelan Dolis or Josh van der Flier, but I think Sexton, at his age at this time, what he means to Ireland, if they're going to get a job done in this World Cup, it's going to be behind him. Obviously, sitting out the band for warm-up matches isn't ideal, but just too good of a player not to be the most important player in this team. If Sexton does go down, Sexton gets injured, he can't play some games, they do look worse than without him, and there's no doubt about that. There's lots, again, very similar to, I think, Andre Pollard, quite clearly the best 10 in Ireland, is such a good game manager that if he can put the forwards in the right position, the team will do the rest, basically, and that's what Sexton will be looking to do. Scotland, we continue on. Bang, bang, bang. Fly halves are all that important. I may have gone Hogg if he was available for this World Cup, but has announced his retirement. Body isn't going to be ready in time, which is unfortunate, but that means Finn Russell is quite clearly the most important player for Scotland at this World Cup. There's no doubt. When he's in form, you can arguably call him the best player on the planet. What he did for Scotland in the Six Nations, when he's on, it hides a lot of the Scottish, I think, deficiencies, and what he can do is just elevate them to the next level. If they're going to upset an Ireland or a South Africa and go through in this pool, Finn Russell's going to have to play outstanding in those two games. One of those two games at least. We know Finn can have an up and down performance. He can be something special and something not special, but he is quite clearly, when he's on, he can take this team to another level. I wouldn't be surprised if Finn Russell does just open even more Southern Hemisphere eyes. There's a lot of love for him in the Northern Hemisphere. I think the Southern Hemisphere underrates him still, and I'm hoping that in this tournament he can have a couple of really Finn Russell-like performances and take Scotland to a new level. Moving on from the fly halves, I've gone back to the big ball carrying inside centre. Now Tonga, fourth team in Pool B, they interest me. There's a lot there. You could go Israel Folau. You could go Charles Piutau. I really like what I saw out of Aya Fafita for them this past weekend. Big Ben up in the front. But I've gone with Peter Aki. I think he is the player to watch. Former All Black who now plays for Toulouse in the French top division. Helped them win a comp this year. Plays really strong out of that second five, but is also a playmaker, and I think this is going to really help with William Havili in that first five, is having him and Malachi Fekitoa at 13. He can carry, but he can also, is a very good playmaker, and I think that's an underrated style of his game. I think it's one of those ones where he's changed nations now, not playing for the All Blacks and playing for Tonga, and it's not getting as much attention as it should be. When I watched him against Australia, I was just so impressed with, that setup. He gets the forwards on the go forward. He allows that space for Piutau and Folau. And I think if Aki can have a good tournament, I think if he has a good tournament, those other three teams will be sitting there a little bit worried. Didn't play against Fiji when they lost this past weekend. Also, I know there was Folau was out for that as well, but I just see really good things happening when he's on the field for Tonga and he's playing for Tonga. I think as much as everyone around them, Peatau and Folau, you could argue is more important. I think if he sets a platform, his importance to setting that platform will allow those to break the game open. On to Romania, the last team of Pool B. This was by far the hardest one. I don't know a lot about Romania rugby, I'm not going to lie, but I went out and did some research, and I've gone with their fly half. I say their fly half. It could really, I'm not sure about how the team's going to set up. But Gabriel Pop was man of the match when they defeated Spain, who was going to be in this tournament, but got kicked out for eligibility issues. In the European Championship, the second division of the Six Nations type thing. So I just went with him. He's a big lad, over 6 foot, strong ball carrier. Look, they've got all the work to do, but in what I think is the most important position in rugby, fly half, that's where they're going to be. If they're going to beat any of these teams, it's going to be behind them. If he starts at first 5, he is also known as being able to play inside centre, but that's who I've gone for the most important player in Romania colours. On to Pool C, and let's start with Wales, and I've gone with a bit of a cop-out. I have. No lies. I don't know what's going to happen with this Welsh team. I'm not sitting here trying to hide that fact. I'm not sitting here trying to lie. We don't know what's going to happen with this Welsh team. So saying that, I've gone the most important person in the Welsh setup is Warren Gatland, the coach. If Warren wasn't coach still, I would be saying Wales could potentially finish last. They've got talent, I get it. It's just players retiring, obviously in-house fighting in Wales. And I'm not blaming the players for this. I think the board's, something's going on there. I don't know the full story, so I don't want to touch too much on it. But what we're witnessing isn't the Wales that we've seen. And we know Gatland's come out and said, if he had known about how troublesome this was going to be, that he wouldn't have taken the job. So if anyone's going to get them out of this pool, it's going to be Gatland. It's going to be how they set up the play, how he gets these players ready, how we can get this team to combine and make a team and get them through these tough times, I would say. Obviously, lots of talented players I could have chosen. Dan Bigger probably being one that I think, again, the fly half position. But I just went, you know what, if this Wales team's going to get out, it's going to be Gatland and his coaching. The Wallabies, Australia, a really interesting one. You could have chosen lots of players. You could go Quade Cooper. You could go like a Nick White. But I just, Karevi could be. But I just went, you know what, I've seen enough from like a Fekete at second 5 when Karevi was out against France to say, if Karevi went down, not the biggest. Obviously don't want that, but not the biggest issue. Outside centre, I feel Ikitau, but he's obviously injured now, so they're going to have to come there. Fullback, I went like Callaway maybe, but I settled on this because I think it's the biggest position of issue for them. And if this bloke can get going, he will be the most important player for them in this tournament and how far they go. Will Skelton, quite clearly, I would argue, is the best lock in the world for club rugby. When he plays for La Rochelle, it's a different level, different beast. We've seen that with back-to-back Heineken Cups and a final for them in the top 14 this year. He hasn't really converted that into Wallaby colours, like his performances. I don't know if it's the style of play or what, but if he does get going, the locking tandem, the locking duo has been an issue for a very long time. I shouldn't say always, John Eels, for the Wallabies. It's been an issue for a long time. Skelton can clear that issue if he can play up to the level that we all know he's capable of. And I think if he does play up to that level, he'll be by far the most important player in Wallaby colours, the green and gold, because of what he can do on the field. And I think if he gets that go forward and if he, settles the line-outs down and everything like that, he's irreplaceable is the way I see it. And if you're irreplaceable, to me, you've got to be pretty damn important. Fiji was another hard one. Players all over the field that can make game-breaking decisions and moves. Radradra, just looking at it, I've just sat there and I was like, look, there's so many players here that could do it. I actually think it's going to be the link between their forwards and the backs. Watching them play Tonga, they were strong. There was a lot of strength there. But I think the link with scrum half at Frank Lamane, especially after the season he just had for the Drua, I really am impressed by him. If he can play up to a level, I would watch out for Fiji to beat Wales and even Australia. I can see that they've got so much talent out wide. If they can get good ball from the inside. And I looked at, like, Caleb Muntz played, I thought, really well against Tonga this past weekend. Really liked what he did. But I just think it's going to come from that halfback position. And to put on top, if Frank can get the cohesion between backs and forward, He adds his running game, which is next level. He could be a winger in most Super Rugby teams. That's how quick he is. So I just think if Fiji are going to go well at this World Cup, it's actually going to be that link and that cohesion set up by Frank Lamani. For the 11th ranked team in the world, you'd think I'd probably know a bit more about them, and it's unfortunate. Georgia, I'm high on them. I know enough about them. David Nashvili is a player that of standout that I was... It comes to the top of my head as the player there. The fullback, he can break games open. Very much a reminder, a slightly bit bigger Ange Capuzzo. So will take steps at this World Cup, will be a breakthrough player at this World Cup. However, I've chosen Beka Gogadze. The big number 8 was massive for them in the European Rugby Championship, again, below that Six Nations, making a big impact for them when he came back from injury after his game against Wales, when they won against Wales. Their number 8, he will go forward. I've seen his highlights. He's strong, big, ball carrier, also leads a defensive line. I just think if they're going to beat Fiji, which I don't totally believe they can. Australia, I think they can as well. And Wales isn't out of the realm of possibility anymore. You know, the 11th ranked team, they're playing 8th and 9th in the world when they play Aussie and Wales. And then Fiji, I think, is below them at 12th or 13th. So I just sat there and went, this Georgian team has a really good opportunity. I'm really high on them. And if they're going to do anything, it's going to be from Beka. Portugal, I watched their highlights going through qualifying, and there was a clear player I thought that stood out to me. It was their inside centre, Thomas Appleton. He really is the glue of the back line. Again, another strong carrier. As you can see, I'm a back, obviously. I've selected minimal forwards. I understand the game gets one up front, and I don't want to take away from that. But what I do want to mention is these players, I think, direct the team. And what was really important about that is if they direct it properly, then the forwards will win it with the up-front battles. So as much as I think these are the most important players, they may not have the best tournaments for the team. I just think they're the most important. And he's the same, a hard carrying inside centre with playmaking abilities, takes a lot of pressure off that first 5 or that fly half. So if you have a player like this, we looked at Namibia, I'm looking at Tonga and Portugal, one of these teams that are a bit lower level, it just takes that pressure off the fly half to do all the work. And why I talk about this, especially with the minnows or the smaller teams, is the big teams already have them. You know, the Owen Farrells, the Geordie Barretts, Karevis when we talk about Australia, the Alande when we talk about South Africa. Like, you could go around and I could go on and on and on and on. But those teams already have them. And every single position for these smaller teams is one that could herald more importance because they're smaller, so these players have to stand out and have to put up their hands and do that. So that's where I see Appleton coming in, as I said, a second playmaker with a hard carry, really important for Portugal. On to Pool D, the final pool, starting with England. Now, I really, really think Courtney Lawes is probably their most important player. I really do. However, I haven't selected him. Again, I don't know where he's at with his injuries. I know he's been battling some. When he's on the field, I feel like England take another step as a team. I think he's fantastic. Really slots into number 6 because he's got the experience as a lock. You move him into 6 and then all of a sudden you've got this beast line-out taker who carries hard, plays like a back rower. Just to me is fantastic. But I've gone with Owen Farrell. Again, I'm a back. Inside centre, playmaking, ball carrier. I see what they're trying to do with their setup and the first 5s. I know, like, I like what they're doing with Farrell at inside centre, is basically what I'm saying. I don't mind if they move him to fly half. He can play there, obviously. I think it just puts up his importance more. He's a playmaker as well. So, look, to me, it's the right thing to do for England. If they're going to go far in this tournament, he is going to have to lead them like he did against the All Blacks in 2019 and how he did it for England there. This team is not one to rule out, even with all the changes they've made. But yeah, I think as much as I wanted to say Courtney Lawes, I just think what Owen Farrell has been offering at inside centre is going to be more important in this World Cup. All right, next couple I'm moving for you forwards to have a listen to. So for Japan, I've gone Kazuki Himino. To me, the number 7/8/6 can play all of the back row. He was influential in the game against the All Blacks, I want to say a year ago, maybe now, maybe it was 2. I think it was a year ago in 2022, yeah. So he was influential there, and I just feel like when he's on form, he leads attack, he leads defence, he leads runs. The Japanese get up behind him. So if he's having a good game, they follow along. And when he stepped up the level against the All Blacks, I feel like Japan come along for the ride. And he's had some time in New Zealand, played for the Highlanders. He's just done so much now, and you know, coming, I think he's 28, 29. He's at the height of his career. He will lead this team into battle. I think he's going to be the biggest importance to them and how they do defence and attack. And another flanker, this time the open side flanker for the Argentinians. Marcos Crema hasn't been in this Rugby Championship due to a ban, and it's been missed, I think. Even with the win over Australia, their defensive efforts haven't been up to the standard they set in Christchurch. And I know that's the standard that they will now hold everything to, is what they did in Christchurch against the All Blacks. When he was there and he made like 20 plus tackles, he was incredible. To me, he is the player. As much as you got Pablo Matera and Juan Martin Gonzalez, players all like that I think are very important. I totally understand it. He is the one, to me, that goes and stands out with his defensive efforts and what he does for the defensive side of the ball, his steals at breakdown. I know a lot of people are going to be Argentina, Julian Montoya, the hooker and captain, but I just think what we've seen in this Rugby Championship is a little bit of an eye-opener to how important Crema is to their team. I gotcha. You thought I was going to keep going with the forwards. No, back to the fly halves. I've gone Christian Leali'ifano for the fourth team in Pool D. Samoa obviously made the switch from the Wallabies to Samoa. I have a little asterisk by his name just purely because Lima Sopoaga has also been invited to the camp, I believe, for Samoa. Obviously, former All Black. If he puts on a Samoan jersey, Christian Leali'ifano may not be as important because they'll have to decide who they go with. I don't know who the better player is. I've grown up with Lima Sopoaga. He went to the same school I went to. I would say he is, you know, obviously donning the All Black jersey. But his time in France, we haven't seen much football from him, whereas I see a lot from Christian because of representing Moana Pacifica. So that'll be interesting there. But I think the fact that they've got a player like Christian Leali'ifano or Lima Sopoaga to lead them around, I'm really excited for this team. They performed against Japan. I know, yes, Japan had a red card the past weekend, but they really impressed me with some of the things they did. I think Charlie Faumuina, the prop from the All Blacks who's now representing Samoa, is going to be vital importance to their scrum. Their scrum already obliterated Japan. For Japan, it was get the ball out in two seconds or less from a scrum, probably less, 1 second if they could, because of how good their scrum was. And we know they've got some electric backs in that team, so it's just about unleashing them. And I think the fly half, whoever it is, Leali'ifano or Sopoaga, will be doing that. And the last team, this is very similar to Portugal. Haven't seen a lot, obviously. Saw them qualifying, knocking out the US and everything like that. Chile, I've gone with Rodrigo Fernandez. He scored the try, which was try of the year for last year, which was a fantastic breakaway try in the qualifiers. Here's their fly half. I'm sticking to my guns. If you want to win the Rugby World Cup or you want to be important and take your team to glory, you want your most important players in the 10, 12, 9 jumper, is my thinking. Is my thinking as a rugby player. And don't get me wrong, as I've said, the game is won up front. But after you win the game up front, someone's got to flow it right. Someone's got to direct that upfront momentum into points. And you need a good 10 or a 9 or a 12 to be able to do that. And so that's why I've gone with Fernandez here, because he can do that for Chile. And if they're going to win or beat anyone in this group, he's going to have to be outstanding. It's a very similar one when we're talking about Uruguay and Argentina. Team full of passion, team that will not stop trying, but they need some direction. And if they're going to get that from him, they're going to get direction and they're going to get a spark. He's quick. He will break games open. Excited to see him in the Rugby World Cup. So that is us for today. I'm really interested, though, to see if I've missed anyone or you would change it for a team, your team specifically, or a different team. I know I am an All Blacks fan who also supports the Fiji and Zura. So like the All Blacks, there was lots. Obviously, Ardie Savea, the fact that I haven't even mentioned him in this video will be blasphemy to myself because he's a Hurricane and I'm from the Hurricanes region. But to me, I think those first fives are more important to the All Blacks than Ardie is as important as he is. That's how important I put the level of importance I put on those first fives. But yeah, as I said, let me know in the comments if you think someone else is more important, if you think some team is more important. For now, thank you for joining me on the sports booth, looking into the Rugby World Cup We'll keep you updated as we go. If you do like these videos, make sure you subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and we will see you again soon. Bye.